Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this panel. Today, we're going to be talking about it's not always just about the money. We're going to be taking a look at the purpose of setting up your own company. As an industry, we're very heavily criticised more than we're praised, and we're going to talk specifically about some press we had yesterday, later on in this panel. And we're going to talk about what really does drive businesses forward. Why do we set up businesses? Why do we work in this sector? What is it that makes us do what we do? Is it money? Is it passion? Is it sustainability? I am Shona ODonnell. I am the head of strategic events at Better Collective, where I am working on building a global awards series for bookmakers that we want to become the trust pilot for players. All about building a sustainable industry, all about putting players and bettors at the heart of everything we do. I am delighted today to have with me two fantastic panelists, and we have got a lot to cover today. Nicola Longmuir is Chief Commercial Officer at Push Gaming. Nikki has over 15 years experience in the industry, and some of that has been spent at some of the industry's best known brands, which include GVC Group, Paddy Power Betfair and Sky Betting and Gaming. Nikki's role at Push sees her take responsibility for the strategic goals across marketing, product and sales, and she really does embody the Push philosophy of player first. And her other passion outside gaming, which takes up most of her time, is being a mum to 9-year-old twin boys. I'm delighted that joining Nikki and I today is Ben Mcdonough, who is the CEO and founder of Green Jade Games. Ben is a lifetime iGamer, like many of us, I'm sure, on the sessions today, who has spent time at brands like Stars, Mr. Green and Betfair. He has built his own business on the premise of building games that engage players, that give them control and that take them on a compelling journey. When he is not gaming, he is father to 4. So that is his big passion outside. So just to set the scene for what we're going to talk about today, as an industry, we've obviously seen continued ongoing M&A activity, not least at Better Collective, where we've just had a massive acquisition of Action Network in the last couple of weeks, which has been in all of the industry press and something we're very excited about. Gaming's always been an industry with a really high level of entrepreneurial activity. We've seen lots of leaders in the industry build phenomenal brands only to sell them, and they really could then sit back and relax and enjoy retirement. But what we see is that people come back again and again and build another business and then sell it again and come back and do that again. And that leads a lot of people, particularly outside of our industry, to believe that everything we do is driven by money. But for many, that's not why we do what we do. People in this industry start their own businesses because of the good, the bad, and the ugly that they've seen at the businesses they work in. And that's both in terms of product, customer experience, and company culture. Ben and Nikki, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks, Shona. Thanks for the nice intro.
Yeah, thank you, Shona.
Excellent. Right, let's crack on. So I know this is something you both feel very passionate about, and we've had long discussions actually in advance of this session. I think we could probably talk all day on this. I think it's a good idea to clarify that when we're talking about sustainability today, we're not talking about environmental sustainability. We're referring to sustainability as an industry. How do we grow and develop in a responsible way? How do we provide great entertainment experiences for players? And I think importantly, and increasingly so as we come under pressure from the wider audiences and other industries, how do we build sustainable businesses where people come first, where people feel that they're able to develop and contribute, and also where they can feel good about what they do? Because I know that certainly in recent years, I've found people's reactions quite different than they were previously when I talk about the industry I work in. And I, for one, am really passionate about the industry, and I think we do great things, and I think a lot of the good things we do, we don't talk about as loudly as we should. But as we all know, there's a lot of things that are highlighted because they do not shine a positive light. Ben, let's start with you. As a founder, let's see what drives someone to start their own business. It's not an easy road to take. What made you start the business? Are you in it for the money? Be really honest with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and certainly I do ask myself that question quite often. Why did I start this? But no, in a serious note, we created Green Jade Games very much to scratch our own itch. We felt there was a product category missing from entertainment, and we felt there was an opportunity to diversify the game type to better serve an emerging or changing audience, let's say. And when we talk about it not being about the money, it's not about the money. The money, making money, is a consequence of solving the perfect why. So if our why is we want to improve entertainment and gambling and build games which are fun, then if we do our job right and we provide that entertainment, then the customers, will go on, utilize and use those products. And the consequence is money, but that's certainly not why we create it. If we're never going to be able to sell a product to someone by telling them, if you buy this, you'll make me rich. That's certainly not going to be the motivation. So it's very much identifying something which we feel could improve a gaming and gambling experience for a player, and then delivering that.
Would you say then that fun is kind of your key driving factor? That's the kind of thing that you talk to people about when you're hiring and bringing people into the business?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's an exchange, isn't it? People have limited renewable resources time or non-renewable resources time, and we're asking them to exchange their time for an experience. And if we don't focus on providing fun and, the titillation of anticipation in gambling and that heightened experience of potential reward, then we're not doing our job properly. And, unfortunately, there will be lots of games which customers find that they go to play that isn't built for them. And, it's difficult to match product to the right players, but it's our job to consistently try and do a better job of that. And if all we produce are slots, table games, live casino games, then we're going to be missing out on a genre or a subsegment of customers. So, we're here to try and build the entertainment and the fun into the gambling in a sustainable way, rather than have all of the cash go into, hyper casual social gaming, free play games where there's no protection, no return, and a very lucrative industry. So, yeah, certainly trying to marry the two spaces.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because we certainly compete with a lot of industries that are significantly, if not at all, regulated compared to the regulations we face. And I know for me, having worked at large corporations and now being an owner-led business, Investor Collective really started as a hobby when Jesper and Christian, where I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying, very young, completely inexperienced, and had never really worked in many businesses, let alone run a business. And it started because they were passionate about sports betting. They loved sports betting and they wanted to find a way to share that with other people. And the vision of empowering iGamers and helping them to bet in a safe and educated manner, which is important about creating a sustainable industry, is that we have to do everything in a safe way so that we maintain the industry and people feel it is somewhere they want to spend their time, I think is so important. And I think when you're working in a business like that, it feels significantly different. Nicola, you've worked at some of the really big brands in the industry, and now you're at Push, which is owner run.
Yeah.
And I know you're incredibly passionate about product. What was the driver for you in moving to a business like Push, having come from such big brands? And I'm sure someone with your skill set, you would have been highly sought at any business in the industry.
I mean, I don't know about that, but I guess I've been in the industry now for about 15 years. And as you say, I've worked across a lot of the big corporates, the big industry giants, if you like. And I decided to make the move this is probably about 4 years ago, just over 4 years ago, when my previous role with Gaming Realms moved over to the B2B sector. So it was a company of around 60, grown to 100, and Push Gaming is at around a kind of 100 level at the moment. And I just felt like I really wanted the opportunity to be able to make a difference and to have a voice that's heard within the industry. I'm not saying that it wasn't from the big corporate gambling companies. I mean, I worked my way up, to kind of leadership levels, but I really liked when I went to speak to the guys at Push, what I really liked was the culture of transparency and just the kind of opportunity to make a difference, to have the voice heard, to kind of influence decisions, and also to be part of a kind of leadership group which is really diverse, but also has a very kind of open culture. Literally anyone in the company can make their voice heard. We have lots of sessions as a company where you can, if you have an opinion about something, or you have have specific views, they're all taken into consideration. And I think it's very difficult at the big corporates for those voices to be heard. So I like, the transparency, I think is really, really key. But also just the opportunity to kind of progress within the company as well, and drive it forward, which I think is much more difficult in the big corporates with thousands and thousands of employees, which a lot of them have become. So I think that that for me that was a driver. I like to personally to be in control of my own destiny and to be able to progress to a level, and actually feel like I've been given that opportunity to progress into a leadership role, whereas perhaps I wouldn't have in some of the big corporates that I'd been at previously in the past.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and we're going to talk about sustainability kind of in two senses, like I said, so around the industry and around actually building a business. And I think that's interesting when you talk about having your voice heard and feeling like that's slightly lost. And I think one of the things that we're hearing increasingly from millennials and Gen Z, the next generation, is that they really want, they're challenging the norms that I think probably people of our generation have grown up with, where they absolutely believe they have a right to a voice. They're not as interested in really hierarchical structures, and maybe that's something we can come back and touch on, because I do think it's a big change in how businesses need to work, and I think they touched on that in the CEO session with Per and Michael and John this morning, which was really interesting if anyone caught that. So let's talk about what sustainability means for the gaming industry. So at Better Collective, our mission, like I said, is really to make sports betting entertaining, to make it transparent and make it fair. We are signed up to the United Nations Global Compact, and one prong of our sustainability programme is Better for Betters, and that's creating a safe space where we can share our industry knowledge and learning so that we can build a community that people come back to and that builds trust, where people feel the information and advice they're being given is safe. And we've obviously, as a business, invested really heavily. For example, at the start of this year, we increased our ownership of MindWay up to 90%. And they are doing incredible work that started, really as university-based research work on how to enable operators to monitor player behaviour and to make sure that gambling revenue is coming from sustainable players and that they're in a position to take action when it's not. And I strongly believe, as I know both of you do, it's something we're quite passionate about, is that for us as an industry, and I mean that across every part of the industry, sustainability is only truly possible when we all come together with a common aim. As we often see in the general press, it's always the outliers that are picked up and where we see people focus, as opposed to all the brilliant efforts we're doing to work on responsible and safe gaming revenue. And that's one of the reasons why at Better Collective we thought it was really important to form RAIG. And that was an association with other affiliates so that we could all work together. And, we've seen people like Kindred, I think they've said by 2023, they've really shared their revenue that comes from harmful gaming. And by 2023, they've said that they will have no revenues coming from harmful gaming. That's a really bold and brave statement. And I think we have to admire them for doing that. What does sustainability for the industry look like for both of you? Nikki, let me come to you first.
Yeah, for Push, it's the top of our agenda, to make sure that we're providing an entertaining experience, but at the same time keeping players safe. We're consistently looking to go above and beyond the regulation, and we're in this highly regulated market, and it's so which changes per jurisdiction, which changes per country, and so we have to be adaptable as a business to still maintain that level of entertainment, but at the same time safeguard our players, and that's paramount to us. That's absolutely top of the agenda, bar none. But yeah, I do think that you're right, Shona. I think that we as an industry get a lot of bad press when the vast majority of suppliers and operators out there in the market are actually striving to be as socially responsible as they possibly can be, and going above and beyond the regulations in some cases, and trying to preempt what the next kind of step is, and where is the UKGC going to go to try and get be slightly ahead of the game, and keep play as safe as possible, because the safer that the offering that we have is, this for us as a business, it's going to be allow us to grow as a business as well. And I know that it's seen as within the industry as being a kind of restrictive thing and negative, but actually I feel like it gives us the opportunity to reach a player really safely, and be able to kind of go into new markets where we know that that people are gambling from within their means. And that's really, really important to push. But I think it's, as an industry, we've taken, it's moved on leaps and bounds from perhaps 10 years ago in terms of where where the industry is going in terms of the social responsibility aspect of it.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. We've all been in the industry for probably longer than we'd like to admit. And it is amazing to see the difference in where we were when I joined, which is, like you, I think, Nikki, probably about 15 years ago now, to where we are now. And I think lots of operators have got brilliant initiatives to make sure that is the case. One of the big things that we share in Better for Betters is we always say, whatever stake you have, that's your stake for play, and you should never expect to make money. Gambling should never be revenue generating, in the same way that if you pay 60 quid to go to the theatre, you pay 60 quid and you don't expect to get it back at the end if you didn't enjoy the play that you went to see. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, my thoughts on this primarily led from my experience on the operator side. So, I think an ideal would be that there's a global standardization of an affordability metric, because we're always going to be talking about it's the times when customers are losing more than they can afford to lose. So it's someone could have a problem with any sort of opportunity to spend money, whether it's collecting comic books beyond their means or gambling. So I'm not sort of making light of the challenge, but I think because we have so many different private companies, we don't have a collective amongst an operator side where we say, okay, let's use this as the standardization for our affordability values and have that as a measurement that we can actually work with customers on when assessing at what point is their gambling becoming irresponsible. So, we become almost victims of government regulation where they will do the job on our behalf by imposing different product development limitations. And I think where that goes wrong, it creates more of a challenge, because we as game developers have our content in markets, domestic and with regulation, and hopefully not without regulation. But it becomes harder and harder if you have black market casinos who can actually satisfy the needs of a player who doesn't want to have, a deposit limit monthly or a spin second limit on their gameplay, because they say that's detrimental to their own experience. It's like going to the theatre and having to put in earplugs and say, okay, we're not going to give you the full experience because not everyone here can handle the audio. So it's a big challenge, and certainly one we don't have an answer to. We're just very willing to work with those who come to us with the recommendations and suggestions. And but it would be the ideal, as I say, I think, is we have a collective approach where everyone says, do you know what, guys, this is the standardization of affordability. Let's work on that, and everyone has the same principle. But yeah, it's a challenge, but one we'll always embrace.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's very challenging because we have so many different voices, and while there are associations within the industry, there isn't one overarching voice that speaks for everybody. And like you say, then we do risk being in a position where we are told what to do. And I think it's great to have people external from your industry who have an understanding of it, have a viewpoint, because sometimes we can be very close to things and it can be hard to see it. But there is definitely a danger of over-regulation, which we've seen happen in many markets in Europe, certainly, and in the States, whereby what that does is just opens up the doors to black market operators coming in, and then there's even less safety, and that actually makes the industry less sustainable for all. So we do all definitely have a responsibility to try and work with regulators to enable them to understand the things that we are doing, because I think there's lots of things we do above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fine balance, Shona. We're trying to provide an entertaining experience whilst keeping the players safe. But there's also, I mean, it doesn't, you always see the bad press with specific examples being drawn out around kind of slots play, etc. And more recently, actually over the weekend, about gambling in the football and sportsbook with the Euros coming up. So, but what's not talked about is the initiatives that one initiative actually that I saw that was actually quite kind of close to my heart, having really energetic kids that play football, is the money that some of the big operators are putting back into grassroots football, because during the pandemic there was obviously a lot of the kids couldn't play football because they couldn't be out and about with teams, etc. And a lot of these small clubs kind of started to fold and they weren't getting the funding, etc. And I think it was a fantastic initiative to get get kids back into football now that the pandemic is starting to kind of hopefully draw to a close. There's a lot of really good initiatives, and also I've started to see much more prevalence of initiatives around diversity and inclusivity within the industry as well, which is a really, really positive thing. And that's the kind of thing that doesn't particularly get talked about. It's generally the negative side of gambling, and that has that gives over a whole perspective of the industry. I mean, I get, as you mentioned at the beginning, Shona, you get lots of different reactions when you tell people that you work in the industry, and that's something that I would like to change as well, because I think we're a really fast-paced, innovative, creative industry that I would like to see young people, me being old, but young people coming in to the industry and not feeling that stigma, knowing that it's a place that they can come and grow and be creative and be innovative and work in a really fast-paced environment, which is what attracted me to the industry, back in the day. And I think it's just gone from strength to strength as time has gone past. And I think the more we can do in terms of the inclusivity and diversity of the industry will help bring those young people through and make it a desirable industry to work in. And I think we're getting there, but I just don't think we're 100% there yet.
So that's a wonderful lead-in. Thank you. So let's talk, because I'm aware we've only got so long and we've got a lot to say. So let's talk about business sustainability. And it's something we are talking about a lot at BC just now. We've invested heavily in a really phenomenal leadership course, which touches on lots of coaching and vulnerability and diversity and all of these things that I'm really passionate about. And this is what we want to talk about, is how do we attract in an increasingly competitive market? I think where young people are, I think when I was young, I didn't really think about necessarily the ethics around where I was going to work or company culture. I just kind of wanted a job doing something exciting. And I think that's really changed. So how do we build businesses that people are proud to be part of? And I mentioned at the start, I'm sure most people watching will have seen another article from the UK-based media outlet, The Guardian, specifically about the lack of females, but also about the lack of people of colour in a judging panel. I know you've both seen it because I sent it to you this morning, whereby we had 50 judges, 1 female, and I believe no black judges at all, and possibly 3 or 4 people of colour. And also, I guess, as you're building your business, how do you make sure that passion you have, like Ben, you're so passionate like I love talking to you about the business because it's your passion comes across, but it's different being a founder to being an employee. So how do you share that passion? How do we get the right people into our business? Recruitment and retention is really tough. How are you going about doing that?
Really good question, and it's something we don't have a perfect solution on yet, but we obviously work on it, and we've spoken about this. So I look at it very much with the case that our customer base is entirely diverse. We're not building a product for a very niche audience. We have a very global, generic audience made up of all different colors, genders, age groups. So when I'm trying to build a team, I'm trying to keep our customers in mind, because there's no one person who has a good understanding or a good appreciation of all the different segments and sectors of our societies. But the better job we can do in diversifying our own workforce gives us an opportunity for at least the voice to be heard internally, to have that representation. However, I will caveat it that when you're building a startup, it's not that easy to have, you don't have that luxury of picking from 10, 15 different options to create that beautiful makeup of a company. So first and foremost, we have to get the business to be sustainable, and wherever possible, we have I think 9, 10 different nationalities from 20 people in the company now. So one way we have found we can improve our diversification is by embracing remote working. Quite naturally, when you've got people working for you from Croatia, Ukraine, Russia, Germany, you have a better representation than you would find if you just employed domestically in any one market. So that helps. And then, we're trying to do a better job of improving awareness of the company. You can't hope for an application from a person of color or female if they don't know about your company. So it's also about marketing and ensuring that people are aware that, we're out there, we're hiring, we have fun work, we have challenging creative problems to solve, and that we invite anybody who thinks they can contribute and be passionate about the product to come and join us. So it's not easy, because, as I say, when you're a small startup, you're pretty selective about, you're pretty selective. The number of candidates coming through is already quite a narrow funnel, and it's already pre-selected before it gets to you. So it's really just twofold: doing a better job of awareness so we get a greater pool of people coming through, and then making sure that they know everyone's welcome, everyone's got the same equal opportunity to contribute and provide. So but I haven't got the silver bullet yet.
And Nikki, just before, I know we're almost out of time, I think we could probably talk about just this section for a whole panel. How do you think it's become harder in terms of attracting people and sharing that culture and passion, particularly in the last year when we've faced so many challenges with remote working. And, as businesses diversify, BC started as, one office in Denmark, and now we're in 12 offices across 10 countries. It's so much harder, I think, to share that culture. And, you lose all those, the water cooler moments when we're all working from home.
Yeah, it's been a challenge, and we at Push are in a very similar situation where we have, multiple offices in multiple locations. We have a very, but the challenge there is also around culture. So we have quite a big section of our company based in Lviv. So not only do you have the kind of time difference situation to deal with, but you also have like a very different culture, and it's just about embracing that and making sure that everybody feels kind of included. We're trying. It has been really difficult through lockdown. In fact, I actually started with Push in June of last year, so I've been with Push. I actually haven't met anybody face to face since the whole time that I've actually been with the company. So it has been a really big challenge for me personally, but also for any new recruits that we've brought in over the last year, to try and kind of, get them to embrace the culture and even understand what the culture is at Push. And hopefully, we're trying to kind of, make sure that people feel like just because they're maybe one person in Brazil, for example, that they're still part of the team. How do we do that? And I think we have quite a lot of company-wide initiatives. We're also very big on well-being as well, and making sure that our that the teams are all feeling like they have a voice, they're included, and they feel part of the team. And also during these times, just to be adaptable, be flexible, and I think that actually goes a long way with people in understanding that it has been a challenge over the last year, and that your company has your back. And I think that's really important. And I have seen actually a lot of that throughout the industry as well. When you look at LinkedIn about certain initiatives that the companies have had, which is fantastic to see that there is a real concern about the staff, about their teams, and that they're making sure that we can continue to retain people. If people feel like they're not appreciated, or that their well-being is not looked after by the company, then you're not going to retain them. So that's something that we focus on. But mainly we look at, when we're recruiting, we're really always looking at the skills and the best candidates for the role, regardless of gender, of the color of your skin, your age. It's all about ability, and it's all about your enthusiasm and how you present yourself, and whether it will be a good fit for the company. And we're a very enthusiastic company, and we're really keen to kind of build really good content, and we're just looking for people that fit that bill. But also from a kind of gender point, I mean, Push are very much maybe unintentionally as well, which for me I think is a good thing. But we have some really strong key leaders, which are females within the business. We've got a couple of females at board level, which is kind of unheard of in the industry. And I would like to see that kind of being echoed through other companies within the industry, and some of the big corporates as well, where I think there are some really strong females in the industry that should have been represented within the judging panel, that's been talked about in the press. And I think highlighted now means that hopefully it'll be addressed.
Yeah, I think all very good points. I think we are out of time. We do have one quick question, which is just saying, do we think that heavy regulation, affordability checks will actually drive players from regulated markets? And I think, yes, we do think that, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't engage. It means that we should absolutely engage with regulators and make sure that we're working with them so that we're part of that conversation rather than being told what we should and shouldn't do within the industry. I think we don't have all the answers. I think we could have talked for a long time, but I think to sum up is, sustainability in terms of how we think about our players, we think about our industry and how we build our businesses, the key thing is that should be part of our culture and values, and that is how we can continue to grow and show the strength and the brilliant things we're doing as an industry. Nikki and Ben, it has been my absolute pleasure to speak to you today. Pierre and the team at iGaming Next, thank you so much for having us all, and I hope you will all continue to enjoy the rest of the sessions today and tomorrow. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shona. Thanks, Ben.
Bye-bye.